Okay, so you know how everyone's talking about brand authenticity these days? It's like everywhere you turn.
Oh, absolutely. It's gone way beyond just being a marketing buzzword now, right?
Exactly. It's not just about a logo or a tagline anymore. It's about how a company's values actually translate into real actions. And you know what? There's this fascinating new study from the Journal of Brand Management. It's a deep dive into how this whole authenticity thing connects to, get this, employee behavior.
Mhm.
We're talking about the difference between employees just going through the motions and genuinely, going above and beyond for customers.
And it really challenges that assumption that if you just tell employees to believe in the brand, that's all it takes. Like that's going to magically motivate them.
Right. It's like you can tell when someone genuinely believes in what they're selling versus just like reciting a script. Think about when you check into a hotel,
Mm.
right? Maybe the staff are perfectly polite, but you can still just tell that something feels off.
Yeah, yeah. So this study, they actually looked at frontline employees at branded hotels in India, and they found something really interesting. There was no direct link between how authentic a brand felt and whether or not the employees went the extra mile.
Wow, see, that's so interesting. You would think that a strong, authentic brand would naturally lead to employees feeling more motivated, more invested.
You absolutely would, and that's why the study's methodology is so important here. It wasn't just about surveys. They actually looked at real observed behavior. And what they found was that for brand authenticity to really work, to actually translate into those positive actions, you need two other key ingredients in the mix.
Okay, all right, so let's unpack those secret ingredients then. What needs to be there for brand authenticity to really click?
So the first one is something called psychological empowerment.
Okay, now I love the idea of feeling empowered, but what does that actually mean in this context?
So it means that employees need to feel like they have the power, the agency to actually make a difference in their roles. Their actions, what they do, it matters. It's not enough to believe in the brand's message. They need to believe that they can personally make an impact through their work.
So, like, if they feel like just another cog in a machine, then what's the point of going above and beyond?
Right.
Their efforts would feel meaningless.
Exactly. And that takes us to the second crucial ingredient, organizational commitment.
So it's not enough to just, like, love the product or service. You have
Mhm.
to actually believe in the company itself.
Yes. Believing in the company's values, their mission, their culture, employees need to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, something that they can be proud of.
It makes me think about those companies, the ones that are known for having those incredibly loyal employees. There's a reason people want to work there, right? And I feel like it's often because those companies have really nailed that sense of shared purpose, that shared commitment. But here's where it gets a little bit tricky, maybe even a little counterintuitive. This study also found that too much autonomy at work could actually have a negative effect.
It's true, and it really challenges the whole, work-life balance, be your own boss thing that's so big right now.
I know, right? We're constantly being told that autonomy equals freedom equals happiness equals better performance. So what's the deal here?
It's like, imagine if someone told you to bake a cake, but they don't give you a recipe, no ingredients, not even an oven, and then at the end, you're judged on how the cake tastes.
Oh, see, now that's just setting you up for failure from the start, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's kind of what unstructured autonomy can feel like, right? Without the right support, the right guidance, that freedom can actually lead to anxiety, maybe fear of failure, even just a sense of like being adrift. It's about finding that balance, that sweet spot.
So how do we actually find that sweet spot then? Because this is all
Oh.
super interesting, but like, what does it all mean for the people listening? Whether they're, leading a team out there working directly with customers, or even just trying to like live a more authentic life in general.
Well, there are some really valuable takeaways here for everyone, honestly. I think for those leaders, those managers out there, the message is clear. It's not enough to just talk about authenticity. You have to actually live it. Internally, I mean. Like if your company says they value transparency, but then all the big decisions are made behind closed doors, come on, that's brand inconsistency. And your employees are going to pick up on that.
Totally. It's like that restaurant that says they use all locally sourced ingredients, but then the employees find out it's all frozen and shipped in. Talk about a recipe for disaster. And I can only imagine how demotivating it must be to work somewhere where there's that disconnect between what they're saying and what's actually happening.
Right, exactly. And so to create that psychological empowerment we were talking about earlier, those leaders need to figure out how to provide structure alongside that autonomy. Like think about it as guided autonomy. So you're giving your team the resources, the training, the support they need to make good decisions and take initiative. And then when they do, celebrate those wins.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Celebrate those wins. It makes me think about some companies that are really nailing this whole thing. Like, there's that outdoor apparel company, I can't remember the name right now, but they actually encourage their employees to take paid time off specifically for adventures, like no questions asked. I think they even have a gear loan program or something.
Yeah.
That's walking the walk, right?
Yeah.
They're living their brand.
Absolutely. And that organizational commitment we talked about, well, that's earned by making employees feel seen, heard, valued. It's about creating a culture where open and honest, two-way communication is just like the norm, not something scary. And that actually reminds me of this story about this big tech company went through this whole thing a few years back. They rolled out this huge employee wellness program. Sounds pretty good on paper, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they were trying to do something positive.
They were. But here's the thing. They made a critical error. They didn't actually communicate why they were doing it. Like, they didn't connect it back to their values, didn't explain how this new program actually benefited the employees. And so it ended up coming across as really impersonal, out of touch even. And morale actually took a nosedive.
It's a classic case of good intentions, poorly executed.
Yeah.
It all comes back to communication.
100%. But let's not forget about those frontline employees listening in, right? You guys have more power than you realize.
All right, frontline folks, this is for you.
You are the face of the brand. You're the ones interacting with customers day in and day out. You have the power to shape their entire perception, for better or for worse.
It's so true. You're the ones bringing the brand to
Yeah.
life, right? But what can you do if, let's say, you're that frontline employee and you're feeling that disconnect, that misalignment we've been talking about? Like, what if you don't feel empowered, you don't feel valued by the company? What then?
Yeah, I can see how that would be really frustrating. But honestly, it really all comes back to communication.
Okay, so not just complaining about what's wrong, though, right?
Right. Not just complaining. It's about constructive feedback, like actually coming to the table with solution.
Be a part of that solution.
Exactly. Explain how you see things, how things could be done differently to better align with those brand values. Because you never know. Your feedback, it could be the catalyst for real change.
I love that. Be the change. Okay, so before we wrap things up here, this whole conversation have really got me thinking, like, what if these principles, this idea of authenticity, empowerment, commitment, what if it's bigger than just business?
Oh, that's a really interesting question.
What about our own personal brands? How we show up in our own lives, our relationships, even just out in our communities.
It's like, are we bringing our most authentic selves to the table in every aspect of our lives? I love that.
Yeah. Do we feel empowered to make a difference in our own circles? Are we really truly committed to the things, the people, the causes that matter most to us?
It's not just about companies, right? These concepts, they can absolutely apply to how we live our lives every single day. And maybe, just maybe, exploring those questions, that's the key to living a more authentic, a more impactful, and ultimately more fulfilling life.
It's closing a really good book and just sitting with all those thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
It's not just about, the information. It's about making it mean something, connecting those dots. And so, on that note, we want to hear from you.
Yes. Tell us everything.
Have you experienced this disconnect, between a company's values and their actions? Have you figured out ways to be more authentic, more empowered in your own life?
Share those aha moments, what really resonated with you today.
Exactly.
Yep.
You can find us over on social media. Use #AuthenticityUnpacked so we can keep this conversation going.
We'll be diving into all your comments.
Yes. And until next time, keep it authentic.